petition to all the schools in the United States. Does anyone ever hear the word education reform from President Obama? Okay. Or during his State of Union address? Well, this was education reform. And he started a competition called Race to the Top. And up for grabs was $4.5 billion. And any school district that did A, B, C, and D quickly got that money. Of course, New York State were first in line. But I have here with me, I printed it out and I found it, the Race to the Top Program Executive Summary. This is exactly what it is. I went on the U.S. Department of Education and I printed it out. And these are the things that these school districts, these states had to have in place in order to get the money. They had to adopt standards and assessments that prepare students to succeed in college and the workplace and compete in the global economy. Okay. Building data systems that measure student growth and success and inform teachers and principals about how they can improve instruction. Recruiting, developing, rewarding, and retaining effective teachers and principals, especially where they are needed most, and turning around our lowest achieving schools. Which all sounds great. So in 2009, New York State was the first of 11 schools to win this competition. So we got $700 million. But everyone knows that $700 million in the state of New York, it takes $20 to $40 billion to run schools here in New York State. So we won the competition. But the problem was in 2009, no one knew what it meant, what the standards were. No one knew what it meant, meaning collecting data, but we signed up anyway. So 4 years later in 2013 comes the Common Core and state testing. I'm sure most of you here with your children find it hard to help them with homework, right? I mean, I know that was my frustration. I wasn't learning this, and I graduated in 2000, so I'm not like ancient or anything, but I wasn't learning math the way my son was learning math, even my kindergartner. You know, I wasn't learning these things. I'm like, what is going on? The reason why tests are that much harder this year is because the Common Core is implemented in those tests. What does it mean for our kids? Relearning the way they did math and English, different than last year. So that is why all this test prep is going on for these children, because they have to relearn processes. The Common Core, just by the name common, is an even playing field for everyone, which means it's a one-size-fits-all curriculum coming down from the federal government. So when I went to speak to my superintendent with my husband on Monday and said, and demanded answers, I don't know about you, but I don't like to hear, Janine, you gotta go contact Commissioner King or the president, because we're not in control anymore. So on the local level, us as parents or our school districts have no say. Before, we used to be able to say, you know, like a board member, vote him out. You used to be able to write letters and have recourse with our school districts. But now, because of the Common Core, our recourse is now the state and the government. That's a problem for us parents, because it takes away our power. And we're realizing that our power is very limited when it comes to telling our child or the school district that our child isn't taking a test. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the data systems. And I think this is what is the most scary, that us as parents don't really want to believe that the United States government could be collecting data on my children. The FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, before 2011, did not allow the U.S. government to be able to use or tamper with or access student data. In 2011, Arne Duncan of the New York State Department of Education amended that to allow it. So what does that mean, data systems? It means that when our kids take standardized testing and other means of data collection, our kids' information, as well as teachers, will be in the cloud. And if anyone has Apple, you know what clouds mean. It means like information distributed everywhere. What is data systems and how is it being funded? Well, does everyone know Bill Gates? Okay. Bill Gates funded the project called InBloom with $100 million, and it will collect all the student data. Rupert Murdoch, does anyone know who that is? He owns News Corp, which owns Fox News, built the infrastructure which will store the data. The only two states that have agreed starting this year to upload all student data to InBloom is New York and Louisiana. So our students, our children, are being tracked from kindergarten to 12th grade without parental consent. If you go on the InBloom's website, and I looked it up, the privacy policy states that it cannot guarantee the security of the information stored, or that the information will not be intercepted when it is being transmitted. How can this happen in the United States of America? I mean, 2 weeks ago, my life was fine and dandy. Now, as more I learn, this creeped in, behind parents' back. I would argue to say that most parents, or actually every parent in this room, when given the information and the facts, would say, no way. And that's why we're here tonight. The measures for collecting data, well, I figured let me stick with the facts. The United States, U.S. Department of Education, this is their textbook for how they're going to measure data. I printed it and I found it. It's called Promoting Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance, Critical Factors for Success in the 21st Century. Who doesn't want our kids to have grit and perseverance and tenacity, right? We want our kids to be able to be tough and to be able to make it in this world and to be able to not give up. What we don't want is the United States government or other people other than us determining if our child has grit and then shuffling them into careers as they get older based on that grit. And some might say, Janine, you're crazy. What are you talking about? I wish I was. The measures for collecting grit. Self-report, which means measuring students' attitude, goals, and emotions and beliefs, page 35. Informant reports, reports made by someone other than a student. For example, a student's report card, which we're used to. School records, grades, standardized test scores, attendance, dropping out, discipline problems, social services used, and so on. Behavioral task performance. This is the fourth way they're going to measure whether our children are promoting grit, tenacity, and perseverance. And I'm going to have this out so that way you can see it. But in this document on page 44, there's things that eventually they want to incorporate sooner than later because Bill Gates pledged $70 million to start funding this. But a facial expression camera for our children to know if they're smiling or they're happy when they're doing their work. A posture analysis to see if they're squirming, or if they have grit and perseverance, if they're able to handle what they're learning. A pressure mouse as they click on tests. Just to let you guys know, and starting in the year 2014-2015, which I have with me too, the timeline of implementation, our children will no longer be taking these tests with paper, they'll be online taking tests. So you can totally, we call PARCC assessments, you can totally see how they would use these things. And last but not least, a wireless skin conductance sensor, where a child would wear that and it would be able to scan things and how they're feeling. The reason why I brought this is because these things sound far-fetched. I remember looking up 2 weeks ago after I went on Jeanette's site, and I just was, looking and Googling and reading and watching videos, and my husband came home from work, and I started to cry. Because I said to myself, what happened to education to where kids learned how to be creative and think outside the box, not be measured on what they're going to do in their life? Because the Common Core Standards does exactly that. It keeps everyone common. And we all know that if you have more than one kid, no two kids are alike. But yet, with this curriculum coming down from the United States government, it's equaling the playing field. So much so that the reason why they're testing children in grades 3rd through 8th is so that through 9th to even 14th grade in the city, they have schools from 9th to 14th grade, based on your kids' standardized testing, they can see where they're going to end up. So instead of your child making up their mind 15 times before they graduate high school to what they want to be, the government will say, well, based on your test scores, this is what you'll be. So gone are the days where we ask our children, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? It will be, you will be whatever, when you grow up, you will be whatever your Pearson test score says, or your standardized test score says. And later on, before we're done, I'm going to show a video to show you where the future is going. Another thing I noticed about 2 weeks ago when I started uncovering all these things, I happened to look at my kids' homework, and if you look at the homework, you'll see, on mine anyway, Pearson Education. Okay? So I Googled it, and I went on their site, and that's the video I'm going to show you today. The future that Pearson has stakes in this. Never before has there ever been in history where big government and big corporations collided. If anyone's ever read the book Children of the Corps, it's by Chris Nielsen. It's an amazing, amazing book. And what he talks about is that, in history there was fascism. And that was big government, big business controlling everything. Then you have communism. That's where the government, big government controls everything. But in the United States of America, April 11th, 2013, we have a conglomeration and a partnership of big business, billionaires with limitless amount of money, and big government together. And like I said, these are things that you can look up. I'm going to leave this out so you can see it. But never before has this been done, where Pearson Education, McGraw-Hill, are stand to make millions and billions of dollars because of test preparation, standardized testing. Who's going to be preparing the Common Core curriculum? Pearson Education, McGraw-Hill. Rupert Murdoch has been quoted to say that the education system is a $500 million business. So that's what the United States government, by dangling a carrot called $700 million, and New York State took it, we have now succumbed to. So the video I'm going to show later from Pearson Education's website is going to show you the future of what our children are going to succumb to. An iPad waking them up in the morning, an iPad going to school with them, no books, no papers, no backpack, scans them as they walk into the school. They sit down in their classroom, which looks like a boardroom. There's no posters, there's nothing else on the desk except their iPad. They walk into a room, there is no American flag, they do not say the pledge, they sit there. A teacher basically points to different parts, the kids get up, they leave, they go home. They're home, they're always learning. An iPad in front of them, they do a video lecture. But the scariest part of this video, and the reason why I want to highlight it so that when you see it, that you really pay attention to it, is when the mom is home looking over her son's progress, and he's only maybe in 5th or 6th grade. You see his picture, and you see the courses he's taking. But on the left-hand side, and I'm going to pause it so you can see, it's going to say projected career path. And it's going to list 3 different careers based on his test scores that he should go into. And then it's going to narrow it down to 1 that he should go into, and the schools that he should look into. Now, I don't know about you, but we live in the America where we can have the American dream. People move from other countries to come here to live the American dream. I have a brother-in-law who's Brazilian, and he left Brazil at 19 to live the American dream, because you don't have that opportunity anywhere else. But today, in this day and age, and where we live, that American dream as we know it is changing, and changing very fast, to where corporations will have our students and our children's data. Where taking a test no longer means taking a test, it means prepping for months on end, where we all know, common sense tells you can't learn and study at the same time. Either you're learning or you're prepping. You're not doing both. So that's what's at stake here. And that's what I felt like I really wanted to get across to so many parents on Long Island, is that our children are up for grabs. The way we know our country is literally up to grabs. And sometimes I feel like over the past 2 weeks, I had to almost pinch myself, because I'm like, this can't really be happening here. And I gotta be honest with you, and I'm just gonna be honest, I personally, I did not vote for President Obama. I didn't. But I never thought in my wildest dreams that this would be happening. We knew it was coming down the pike, but I never ever thought that the government would ransack education, but it makes total sense. Do you know why? Because every great nation, whether they were good or bad, always wanted the children. You go back to the Bible, if anyone watched the Bible series and Moses demanded Pharaoh let his people go, what did Pharaoh ask for? Children. I hate to bring him up, and I'm not comparing our government to Hitler, but Hitler wanted the children. But never before in the history of the world has there ever been a partnership of big government and corporations, where, like I said before, people have limitless money to get what they want. So the only recourse we have as parents is our children. If our kids don't take the test, there is no data, Common Core must fail. That's exactly what's behind this opt-out movement. It's dangerous, scary stuff. I mean, I'll be honest, I watched Fox News. And, you have people who were more left-leaning. I can't tell you how many Democrats have said to me, I feel betrayed. And how I feel betrayed because the people I looked up to and thought that were really pioneers for America are behind this. This is a total bipartisan, doesn't matter who you voted for, because that's why me and Jeanette are friends. Who you voted for, you gotta put the stereotypes aside and just remember, we are Americans fighting for an ideal that if we don't, our children will grow up differently than we did, without thinking for themselves. Just like the principal said, they're teaching our children to be a number, a test score, to fill in a bubble, not to think on their own. Everyone knows that every great innovator, inventor who changed the course of history or made great improvements in our country has always been someone who thought outside the box. Who, when someone said no to them, they said, I'll find a way, watch me. But right now in our educational system, that's not happening. And I'm so proud to have all the people that we have here tonight because it shows that you're involved with your children. And it's amazing to me how many people we do have out because I bet you the government or whoever, people involved, really wanted us to be too busy. But it really took one person for Long Island, Jeanette, to say enough. And not even realizing the power of her words that one time going into that principal's office would affect 5,600 people and growing. So I can tell you this, if we really truly band together and say no, in a Democrat state, I can tell you that it will make national news, world news, because New Yorkers, we just go with the flow usually, but not this time, because these are our kids and our children, and we want them to have the same chances, opportunity that the American dream allows that we did. So I want to introduce to you someone who